The extraterrestrial hit. One of the strangest close encounters ever took place on a cold November night in 1961. The witnesses were four men from North Dakota headed home after a hunting game. Freezing rain was beating on the windshield of their vehicle and, as the heating system was virtually out of order, turned to ice on the windows. Three of the travelers were asleep when the driver saw a shining object descending from the sky. It descended to a distance of about half a kilometer, on the right side of the road. The driver, alarmed, woke up the passenger beside him with an elbow, who woke up quickly enough to see the object as well. One of the men sleeping in the back seat also woke up and saw it. Everyone was certain that they had witnessed an air disaster. They rushed to the site, where they found a silo-shaped object stuck in the ground at about 85 degrees and a little over 130 meters. Four silhouettes surrounded it. It was not easy to observe the scene on that dark night and from some distance, and so one of the men pointed a flashlight at the vehicle and its occupants. And at this point, as one of the hunters later reported to an investigator from the National Commission for the Investigation of Aerial Phenomena, there was an explosion, and everything disappeared. The men, greatly shaken, thought the vehicle had blown up and entered the camp, still in their car. But there was no trace of the device. They awakened the fourth man, a doctor at the local Air Force base, and told him that as soon as they found the crash site, they would need his help. The doctor advised them to return to where they had been when they had first seen the object. That way, he said, they could retrace their route and better understand where the plane might be. Shortly after returning to the highway, they saw the object and its occupants again. The doctor turned on his flashlight and ran the beam of light along that silvery, silo-shaped vehicle until it struck one of the figures, about 5 feet tall and wearing a white jumpsuit. Strangely, the man waved his hand in a gesture that seemed to enjoin him to move away. But if there had been a plane crash, the witnesses wondered, why was the man signaling for him to leave? The hunters walked a short distance away, debating what to do. Some thought that the object was an experimental Air Force device that they were not supposed to see. One of them expressed the supposition that the man was a farmer and that the plane was actually a silo. Eventually they resumed their journey home. They traveled another 3 kilometers when the object returned and made a soft landing less than 150 meters away. All of a sudden 2 human silhouettes were visible in front of the vehicle. One of the hunters threw his belly to the ground, pointed his rifle and fired a shot. The nearest figure was hit in the shoulder. She spun around and fell to her knees. Her companion helped her to her feet, shouting, "Can anyone know why the hell he did that?" The 4 men later tried to reconstruct what had happened next, and they found that their memories were rather fuzzy. 2 of them denied that a rifle had been pulled out of the car. The man who remembered shooting the figure said that his behavior seemed irrational and bizarre. The only thing they remembered clearly was that they had returned home at dawn, and that their anxious wives had stayed up waiting for them. The next day the shooter was surprised to find strange men waiting for him at his place of work. They addressed him by name and said they had received a report on his experience the night before. They asked him if he had gotten out of his car during the first part of the experience, and they also wanted to know what he was wearing. When he answered that he was dressed as a hunter and wearing a pair of boots, they asked him to take them to his home so they could examine his clothes. After examining them they got up to leave. The one who had sustained most of the interview thanked him for his cooperation and then warned him, "You will do well not to mention this to anyone." The men got into their cars and drove off, leaving the doctor on foot. He had to call a cab to return to the base. They never asked anything about that gunshot, and all their questions were directed entirely to the first part of the sighting, recalled in Dr. "I think they knew more than they said, but I don't know for sure." He never saw them again and to this day has no idea who they were or what exactly they wanted to know from him.